During the exam, a female student pretended to drop her eraser. While the teacher was looking at her legs, the entire class had enough time to copy the answers. Students of the University of Chemistry and Technology enter the classroom to take an exam. The members of the Sigma dorm get ready to use cheats to get a perfect score. Unlike his friends, student Kenji Kimura plans to take the exam on his own. He aspires to graduate and do research under the genius astronomy professor Namazuta. Testing takes place under the close supervision of observers. Despite this, students show miracles of ingenuity and hide cheats in unusual places. One of the students wrote the correct formula on a rubber eraser, another on the back of his jacket, and another programmed the correct answers into his watch. After a while, Kenji's friend from high school, Yumi Morishita, also starts cheating. With the help of nail polish, the girl drew the correct answers on her fingernail in very small print. Another girl pretends to have an eye problem and uses an eye patch with the answers written on it. All this time, Professor Yusuke Maegita is watching the exam through binoculars. He notices one of the students use the cheats and bursts into the exam room. Kimura, who has feelings for Morishita, worries that the professor has come for her, but he takes away Kami, who hid the clues in false dreadlocks. In Maegita's office, the guy is photographed as a criminal and expelled from the university without the opportunity to retake the exam. During a chemical experiment, Morishita once again explodes something and the students have to evacuate to the street through the window. There she meets Kenji, who escorts her home and along the way tells her about his dream of being Professor Namazuta's protege. Morishita admits that she does not know what exactly she wants to do next. The guy says she'll be fine as long as she doesn't get caught cheating. The conversation then turns to the Sigma dorm where Kimura lives. The guy likes to live there, because it is located next to the university. It is cheap and there is free food. Hearing this, Morishita smiles enigmatically. Kimura brings Kami with him to Professor Maegita's class to ask for forgiveness for what happened. But the man believes that cheating on the exam is unacceptable. And if you let loafers and deceivers get into the elite of society, then the world will turn into chaos. Maegita's secretary enters the office to hand him a package. The professor chases the students out of the classroom and takes the assistant to his office, where he kisses her. After that, the professor comes to the chairman, where they examine the layout of their university. They develop a corrupt plan to demolish the Sigma dorm and build a hotel to make money from it. Kimura comes to his beloved Professor Namazuta, who is close to unraveling the origin of the universe. According to his formula, it follows that the universe is motionless and has acquired the form of infinity. Meanwhile, the students from the Sigma dorm go about their usual business. One of them is trying to build a rocket in his room, another is hacking websites, and the third is doing electrical muscle stimulation to get the body of his dreams. Despite the failures in his studies, Kami successfully realizes himself as a prophet. All the girls of the university come to him for predictions. Despite the fact that the prophecies never come true, a new school day is coming. One of Majita's proteges notices similarities between his scientific work and that of Professor Namazuta. However, Maegita accuses the astronomer of plagiarism and drives the protege away. After that, the secretary enters the professor's office and brings a folder with Namazuta's work, which he plans to appropriate for himself. In class, Maegita, as usual, scolds students and makes remarks about their appearance and mental abilities. When it's Kenji's turn, the student answers the question brilliantly, earning Maegita's approval. At night, the magical bones send an ominous message to Kami that their dorm is in danger, and he tells his friends about it. The guys think that Kami is still having a hard time dealing with dropping out of the university and just made the problem up. At this time, Professor Maegita gathers the board of directors to decide the fate of the dorm. He convinces those present that the building is in disrepair and only a few students live there, who are already on the verge of expulsion. The council agrees to make a final decision based on the students' final grades. If they succeed, the dorm will remain intact, and if they fail, it will be demolished. In the evening, Morishita climbs into Kimura's room with all her belongings. She tells the guy that she was kicked out of the apartment because of a cat and asks to spend the night with him. Kimura is embarrassed and does not know what to say, but the situation is resolved by the dorm's manager, who is not at all against the female presence. Morishita's appearances greatly affect every member of Sigma dorm. Kimura has vivid dreams in which a girl flies to his bed like an angel. The dorm owner is waiting for a student to visit him at night. The rest of the guys admire the girl's appearance and spy on her in the bathroom. Morishita is secretly in love with Kenji and tries to find out if he likes someone. The guy is too shy and does not understand the hints of his female friend, so he tries not to be alone with her. Professor Namazuta arrives at the dorm with bad news. He tells the students that the dorm is going to be demolished if they don't get good grades on the next exams. The students intend to do everything to keep their housing, so they again decide to cheat. They hack into Professor Maegita's computer and give themselves high marks in the grade book. But in the process, it turns out that the file is protected and their plan fails. Then Morishita decides to help her friends and become a local spy. Thanks to her attractive appearance, the girl manages to ingratiate herself with Maegita and join his research. So she notices the scientific work of a professor with the name Namazuta crossed out. A development manager comes to Maegita and he kicks Morishita out of his office. She stays by the door and overhears a conversation in which she learns about all the dastardly plans of the professor. The secretary notices her and tells Maegita about this in a personal meeting, warning him to stay away from Morishita. The man decides that his assistant is just jealous, but begins to follow the student more closely. Morishita tells her friends about Maigita's plans to tear down the dorm and get rid of Namazuta. They then inform the astronomy professor about the plagiarism of his work so that he reports it to the board of directors. However, the scientist believes that the laws of the universe cannot belong to only one person and refuses to tell on his colleague. Namazuta immerses in memories of how he himself was a student. That year there was a very rare solar flare, which inspired the professor to create a transparent liquid that absorbs infrared radiation. As a result of a chemical reaction, the liquid turned blue and disappeared after a while. With this liquid, Namazuta wrote the cheats for the exam on the window of his classroom. But it was rainy on the day of testing, so his brilliant plan failed. On the day of the exam, there will again be a bright flash in the sun, but this year the students will be in a different classroom and will not be able to see the professor's old cheat sheets. The guys from Sigma decide to study and prepare for the exams. Their patience does not last long, and instead of studying, they begin to quarrel. Morishita is forced to agree to lunch with the professor in order to find out more about his plans. In class, Maigita warns students about the dire consequences if they cheat on an exam. After waiting for the class to end, the guys from Sigma decide to talk to him about demolishing the dorm. The professor says that they don't have the funds to support mediocre students and hints that building a hotel will help bring in additional investment for the development of the university. Kimura decides to make a deal with Mijit. If Sigma students get good grades, then he will leave the dorm alone and accept Kemi back to the university. The professor agrees, but sets his own condition. Each of the students must receive the highest score in each subject on the exam. Kimura realizes that this is an impossible mission for his friends. Back at the dorm, he announces that they will all be cheating. All the days before the exam, the guys use their talents to come up with a variety of sophisticated ways to hide clues. One of the students creates a device with which you can float in the air and decides to test it. However, the guy's flight does not last long and he falls to the ground at great speed. On the first day of exams, Sigma students are in a fighting mood. A camera is built into the cast of the crashed guy, which takes the test questions in real time and transmits them to the helpers in the dorm. They dictate the correct answers to the students through headphones. The next day, the crooks discreetly insert a cassette of cheat sheets into a video player and turn on the recording during the exam while the examiner is not looking. They also hide clues in a print of a shirt of one of the students. To read the hidden formulas, students need to squint their eyes. At the next test, Morishita drops her pencil on the floor and the tester lingers under the table to stare at her feet for longer. Then a bodybuilder student takes off his clothes and shows his classmates the cheat sheets written on his body. Another day of the exam is full of new tricks. The students throw the exam sheet through the window, where it is caught by Professor Namazuta's assistant. He writes the solution on balloons and launches them in front of the audience windows. And on the roof of a neighboring building, a group of fans line up to spell the desired formula. Thanks to cunning and non-standard tips, students pass exam after exam with excellent marks. Maigita cannot understand how the outsiders manage to pass the tests with 100 points and begins to suspect them of cheating. He finds Kami and offers him to turn in his friends in exchange for returning to the university. Meanwhile, the professor's secretary seduces one of the Sigma students into revealing his friend's plans. Professor Midget's protege finds a plagiarized scientific work from his supervisor. He informs the professor's secretary that he is using her for his own purposes. He asks the girl to stop helping Maigita, otherwise she herself may suffer. An evil professor asks Morishita to destroy some papers, which turn out to be the answers to an upcoming exam. Under the gaze of Maigita, the girl has to send valuable clues to the shredder. At night, Morishita takes the friends to the junkyard to retrieve the bag of shredded paper and recover the clues from it. Since there are several garbage bags there, the guys spend all night to find the answers among them and memorize them until the exam. After a job well done, Morishita walks into Kimura's room to talk. The guy asks how long she plans to stay at the dorm, which offends the girl very much. Morishita admits that she never wanted to get a technical education and entered the university only in order to be closer to Kimura. Deciding that her feelings are not reciprocated, the girl leaves the room in tears. In fact, Kimura hoped that Morishita would stay longer with him in the dorm, since he also has feelings for her. However, due to his inexperience in dealing with girls, he could not properly confess them to her. The last day of the exam is coming. The dorm manager secretly sneaks into the student cafeteria and feeds the team of observers his special soup. Meanwhile, Professor Maigita embarks on his plan to stop the students from cheating. He makes everyone present switch places and announces a brand new task. This is how Morishita realizes that the professor deceived her and forced them to collect unnecessary answers in the landfill. Maigita thwarts any attempt by students to distract observers or use improvised means to cheat. He orders the windows closed with curtains so that no one can help them from outside. However, he soon orders them to be opened back, because he notices drawings on the curtains in which symbols can be hidden. Kami decides not to betray his friends, so he shoots the exam task on camera and passes the information to the assistant. But the task is too difficult and he cannot solve with it alone. He asks for help Professor Namazuta, who is happy to fool around a bit and help unpretentious students. After half an hour of the exam, none of the students came close to solving the problem. Suddenly, the two observers begin to have a severe stomach ache and they run to the restroom. After that, the lights go out in the auditorium and Maigita has to send the last observer to check the power supply. At this time, Kami uses a laser, with which he tells his friends the correct answers. The professor cannot understand why they have begun actively answering questions and searches the students for clues. At the end of the exam, Maigita leaves the guys from the Sigma dorm in the auditorium. He orders them to strip down to their underpants and furiously checks all of their belongings for cheat sheets, but finds nothing. Kimura decides to remind the professor of their deal, but the professor was never going to honor the commitment. The director of the university enters the auditorium. He found out about the corruption conspiracy between Maigita and the chairman. The professor denies his guilt, but his assistant brings a tape of conversations between him and the construction company. Maigita's secretary also reveals that he planned to present Namizuta's plagiarized scientific work as his own discovery. The director decides to convene a legal committee to sort out all of Maigita's fraudulent schemes. He informs the Sigma dorm students that the dorm will remain in place. Happy friends hug and congratulate each other. After that, a series of good events continues. Professor Namizuta finally manages to unravel one of the mysteries of the universe. Observers notice that absolutely all students have passed the test with the highest score and go with their work to the laboratory of Professor Maigita. He inadvertently flips the flask with the chemical and it blows up the laboratory and all the evidence of the student scam. In the evening, Morishita meets Kimura in one of the classrooms and tells him that she is going to quit her studies and become a nurse. The guy finally admits that he has feelings for her since high school. At this time, the auditorium is illuminated by a bright flash of light and the phrase "I love you" appears on the windows. After that, Kimura kisses the girl and squeezes her in his arms. In the end, almost all the heroes get a happy ending. Morishita and the Sigma dorm students remain at the university for their second year of study. The dormitory manager, Professor Namizuta, and his assistant retain their positions, and the insidious Professor Maigita quits the university.